the Fix Your Fatigue podcast. Whether you can't get out of bed in the morning, your energy crashes throughout the day, or you're a biohacker looking to optimize your energy, productivity, and focus, this podcast is for you. I am Dr. Evan Hirsch, and I will be your host on your journey to resolving fatigue and optimizing your energy. And we'll be interviewing some of the top leaders in the world on fatigue resolution. Welcome. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Energy MD podcast, formerly known as the Fix Your Fatigue podcast. I'm really excited that you're here with us today because today we're going to be talking about mind-body resilience. If you don't know what that is, stick around and we're going to be talking with my friend, Dr. Marcus Chacos.
Hello.
Yeah, welcome. So let's learn a little bit about him. I'm going to read your bio here. So Dr. Chacos is a chiropractor, best-selling author, and founder of Provolution Health, a wellness practice focused on transforming the health and lives of his patients and the community. As a chiropractor, author, speaker, and coach, he has made his mission to massively and dramatically transform the health and lives of people who seek out his support and care. With an emphasis on peak performance living, he provides the knowledge, skills, and resources to create breakthroughs in your health and quality of life. He has helped a wide spectrum of people, including family wellness care, elite sports people, entrepreneurs, executives looking for health and lifestyle breakthroughs, as well as specializing in spinal hygiene, arthritis, and brain and nervous system health. His in-practice care plans, books, and presentations have dramatically improved the health and quality of life of thousands of people. His practice and online health programs are based upon a philosophy that health is an inherent state in all people, and by achieving balance between the physical, chemical, and mental emotional elements of one's life, one may experience total body health and lead an extraordinary life. Dr. Marcos, thanks so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, so excited to have this conversation. You do such an incredible service for humanity, the people that have the opportunity to listen to your message, to share in the wisdom that you bring. It's a profound service, and I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful for all that you do.
Wow. Well, we're just going to have you on all the time with those kind of compliments. I appreciate that. And so, yeah, let's talk a bit about mind resilience. Well, first off, I want to say thank you so much for getting up early for this. You are in Australia, correct?
That's absolutely right.
And what part of Australia?
Queanbeyan, which is a small town outside of Canberra, which is our nation's capital. Often people think Sydney's our capital, but it is Canberra, and it's a small country town, more than a big city. So it's a beautiful place to be.
Excellent. So if you are in Australia, definitely head on over to Dr. Marcus, but he's also got these online programs and just came out with a new book that we're going to talk about. But first, let's talk about mind-body resilience. What is it and why is it important?
Listen, I think everybody knows the last 2.5 years has tested our ability to be able to cope, adapt, respond to challenge, overcome adversity, face difficulties in ways that at the end of it, we say, not only did we get through that, but we got from that. We are better now than we were before because of how resourced we were to be able to address those challenges that we faced. And I think the beautiful thing about resilience is that as a result of the thinking that you have, the actions that you take, the choices that you decide to move through, you become better at the end of it, more capable of dealing with it. And I know we're going to talk about energy as well, and that will liberate energy and give you the freedom to do the things that you want to do, to be the person that you want to be, irrespective of what's happening in the outside world around you, so that your life is better, your outcomes better, your experiences are better.
Yeah, that's so important, especially with everything that's happening today in the pandemic, and there's another school shooting and all this sort of stuff. It's kind of like, how do you hold all that? So when you talk about mind-body resilience, and it sounds like is it different than normal resilience? Because you've got the mind-body connection in there. How does it differ from if somebody was just talking about normal resilience?
When people talk about resilience, they're often talking about, can they cope with pressure? Can they cope with stress? Can they deal with deadlines at work, difficulties in the work environment, or even the world environment that we see? Mind-body resilience changes things. It creates an extraordinary life because physically you are more capable of responding. Therefore, you have more energy. You liberate this energy to be able to do more and to be more. Emotionally, you're more positive. It's, you know, you choose your response, and you choose powerful and compelling responses, so your experiences are greater. But mentally, you're training your mind to see things differently, to reframe, and therefore to be able to, you know, get from the situation instead of feel like you're a victim to the situation. So you're stronger physically, you're better emotionally, mentally, you're prepared and make better decisions. So you have this capacity with a new mind frame to be more courageous, to have greater standards, to create these wins that you otherwise wouldn't, while you feel better, function better, cope better, but actually design something that is unique and compelling, as I said, irrespective of the outer world. Because if you only have, well, I can cope with what's happening, you get through it. But if you can say, I reframe what is happening, and my physical body, my emotional body is not only capable, but is being designed as I move through this experience to get from the situation, I'm better at the end of it. I'm a servant to humanity through the experience, and therefore my life is more full. And that is how we liberate the energy through this process, because we are knowing that we're coming from a place of service, because we are ready for this experience.
Beautifully said. So let's then talk about some of the strategies. So how do you build mind-body resilience?
Yeah, this is a really important question, and I think everybody knows that they can do it. And if I can for just one moment talk about how people normally experience an expanded resilience, and that is they go through something and then they at the end of it go, I wasn't prepared, but you know what, I got through it in the end and I'm okay. So I'm a little bit better than I was beforehand, but it wasn't planned, it wasn't anticipated. I didn't like it, I didn't want to go through it, but at least I'm there at the end of the day. So we often create resilience as a byproduct of unplanned, unprepared experiences. And that we have seen over the last 2.5 years is so commonplace that people are saying, yeah, I got through, okay, I'm all right, but I didn't enjoy it. And I'm not suggesting anyone should enjoy what we've gone through, but having a level of preparation. So mind-body resilience is a conscious and deliberate choice. It starts with, as I said, creating these small wins and saying, okay, physically, can I do more tomorrow than I did today? Either by training in a way physically, getting up earlier, possibly saying I can actually get up 10 minutes earlier, and then I can do 10 minutes of exercise that I otherwise wouldn't have done. Or if I'm already an early riser and I do exercise, can I increase the intensity so I know physically that I can do more? So they're the obvious ways to increase capacity, enhance performance. But then we start talking about emotional resilience as well on top of that. So how can I choose to respond? Can I put myself consciously and deliberately into a scenario where it demands more of me? Can I volunteer for a project that I feel uncomfortable with? Can I move outside of my comfort zones and make willing decisions to acknowledge that, yes, this is going to be challenging, but I'm going to equip myself through the experience to become more, to be more, so that I can serve more. And then with the mental training is, can I make decisions around how I perform before I put myself into a challenging situation, like having a cold shower or an ice bath, or, you know, doing something that is really demanding of me, and then holding a will in mind that I'm going to not push through, but I'm going to embrace the challenge and feel the change that happens within me as I move through the journey of the challenge, and thereby recognizing I'm becoming more, I'm doing more. And it is a conscious and deliberate process versus a reactive byproduct of change.
So it sounds like awareness is a very important first step, right? Because a lot of people, their thoughts are getting the best of them, right? And so it sounds like that you are reprogramming those thoughts. Is that correct?
Yeah, you've got to bring a new mind frame into all of your experiences, and that is not only the mindfulness. Mindfulness is essential. You be mindful of your experience, mindful of what is taking place, how you're feeling, how you're responding, how you're adapting. But the proactivity is also part of that as well. Making, and I keep repeating these words because we live reactively as a population in so many situations. I see that in my practice, but that consciousness, that deliberateness, that awareness, meaning you make the choice now for the future. My practice name is Provolution Health, which actually translates from the French Revolution, where they said revolution is dramatic, and and can lead to lives being destroyed and governments being torn down. Evolution is too slow. There's this imperceptible change that, you know, a duckbill platypus generates over thousands of millennia. But provolution is proactive evolution. It is a conscious and deliberate change. It is making a decision to be different tomorrow than you are today. And that's why that awareness is essential. You know where you are now. You know you haven't you've reacted instead of responded, and you want to put yourself in a situation that is not overwhelming, that is not so damaging to you that you end up getting angry or, you know, bursting out of the situation saying, oh, I didn't do the right thing. But instead you say, I'm going to put myself in a smaller challenge, these incremental wins, so that you're accumulating resilience and building change over time.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. Provolution. And so let's get really practical here. So then what are we talking about in terms of strategies? Is there we have a daily energy mindset practice that we teach. Like, what are some of the practical steps that you recommend that people go through in order to make some of these shifts?
Yeah, look, this is a really powerful process of, you know, having a step-by-step blueprint of what you can do and strategies and tools that you can use. So I have, and you mentioned that at the beginning in my book, I have 60 specific strategies over 60 days to build that resilience. Would need hours to go through all of those. So I picked out a few that I wanted to speak about because these work in every part of your life. And the first one is the standards that you set. Now, most people are aware of, like, I've got standards, you know, and I can't be sold on my principles, or I won't do things that I know aren't the right thing to do. But I'm going to give you an analogy of standards before we talk about this in relation to resilience. And I coach elite football. I've actually retired from that role now. And so in Australia, it's called Premier League soccer. Over there, you've got MLS in the States. And one of the things that we did within the Premier League was I set standards for my team at the beginning of the year. And those standards, for example, would be, when this was in my youth team, you know, no swearing, no arguing with the referee, no teasing the opposition players, no fighting amongst ourselves. We set standards. And if children decide that they're going to, you know, swear at training, well, they miss a week of training and they miss a game. And we were the most winning team in our local league. So you wanted to be part of this team. But the moment you set that standards, as a rule, and you'll know this in the workplace as well, there'll be certain organizational workplaces, even at schools, there's a dress code. Wear these dress, this level of dress code. And if you don't, and nobody says anything, we've got a problem, because the standards you walk past are the standards you set. Now, I never let anyone get away with dropping the standards within our team. It was done lovingly, it was done compassionately, but we all had an agreement before we began. But the standards you walk past are the standards you set. So when someone says, well, you've got to dress this way at work, and nobody says anything, you've got a whole new standard. So the first part of resilience, the mind-body resilience, is having a standard. What are my standards going to be? What am I not going to accept in my life? Am I going to now say, I no longer accept being late? Okay, I used to rush to work, get there 5 minutes late. It's not a big deal. No one said anything. But no, I'm not going to accept of myself, irrespective of what other people expect of me, to be late. I'm going to expect of myself that I will get up when the alarm goes off, or before the alarm, even better. I'll go to bed so I wake up naturally. I'm going to set a standard, and I'm going to keep to that, and I'm not going to walk past it. I'm going to be untouchable on my standards. That's, for me, the first thing of resilience, is not wavering. All right. Second, as I said, is the mind frame, is having a resilient mind frame, is having that decision that I'm going to become resilient, that I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to recognize and accept that I want to be more tomorrow than I am today, and I want to be extraordinary in a year or 2 or 3 years now, beyond my even wildest dreams. And so that mind frame of demanding more, now that I've got standards, and delivering more. It's a mental reframe. It's, I'm going to do something that I haven't done. I'm going to stay outside my comfort zones, and I'm going to embrace that discomfort as part of my expanded potential. And that means it has to be planned. It has to be designed. You don't suddenly say, I'm going to be more tomorrow, but I don't have to think about it. It'll just happen. No, you have to think about it, and you say, what am I going to do tomorrow that I haven't done before? Am I going to get onto a stage and speak? Am I going to go to work and say, hey, I'll take ownership of a project? Or am I going to say, I'm going to join up a gym and I'm going to have a personal trainer ask more of me and commit to that, doing more each time. So it is a willingness in the mind that starts that journey. And then the third part there is that courage to, do little by little, become more each and every day, follow on that process. And when the pain happens, know that that pain actually is your growth. And when you grow through that, you become more. And then finding ways to be resilient. As I said, you can do cold showers, ice baths, you can exercise harder, you can start doing fasting, and all of these like physical, physiological, even emotional processes give you that constant building of new skills, new capacity to move through challenges consciously and deliberately. You're not waiting for another pandemic. You're not waiting for a financial disaster or whatever unfolds in relation to an international war. You're saying tomorrow you're going to do something you wouldn't otherwise have done. And by doing that, become more than you otherwise would have been, so that each day you do something more, a little, small wins that accumulate to create extraordinary capacity to function, to perform, no matter what happens. And it's a strategy that anyone can use, because you've got that capacity in every area of your life to do more. You've just got to be willing to make that choice.
So good. And these are really secrets to success, in whatever aspect of life you want to take. I mean, I was just having this conversation about running my team and my business, like the standards we're setting. And, so yeah, it's brilliant. And you didn't learn this in medical school, I would imagine. I didn't learn it in medical school.
No,
right?
look,
So how did you
these
learn
are
it?
things you learn the hard way, or there's two schools: the school of prior learning or the school of hard knocks. You can learn it the hard way, which many of us have, or you can talk to somebody or listen to somebody who's come back from the path that you want to travel down, and they're going to share their insights and wisdom with you. I always think that's the best way to learn, but you've got to go both paths sometimes.
Right. So I mean, this stuff is brilliant. I mean, everybody needs to get your book, apply go through those 60 days. Why do you think that sometimes people don't do that? Because this is kind of like, if you want success in life, just do these things. Because I've heard these as well. Success leaves clues. You can look at a number of different teachers and mentors, and they're mentioning a lot of similar things. I love the way that you've put it together. Why do you think that some people don't go down this road?
I think there are three principal reasons immediately that come to the top of my head. And the first is, and this is why you are such an important, servant to humanity, is they don't have the energy. Most people cannot make positive change or powerful change because they're tired, they're fatigued, they're stressed, they're overwhelmed, they're not coping with what is there. So they're not going to make these changes. So the first thing is, go back, listen to every single one of the podcasts, grab Evan's book and immerse yourself in: how do I increase my energy? How do I enhance my health and my well-being? How do I fuel myself for the change that I want? So that's the first thing, is they don't have the energy. The second, I think, is that they don't have a big enough why. They sit there and they go, well, this is all great, it's theoretical, and it sounds exciting, but I don't really need to get up tomorrow earlier. I don't need to push myself in the gym, and I certainly don't have a need for more standards because I've got a comfortable, easy job. I've got my financial needs met. There's no pain that drives me. And so some people will move because they have to, by virtue of pain. Others had a disastrous last 2.5 years. There are people that have lost jobs, lost businesses, lost loved ones, and some people aren't coming back from this trauma in many different ways. But they're being driven by that. So they will find the solution when they push themselves, if they get out of the overwhelm. And that's the second reason people don't, is they can be so not just tired, they can be overwhelmed, stressed, depressed, and their emotional mental state limits their ability to take action. So again, they need to resource themselves around that first. But the third reason, as I said, is the why, the compelling reason. And many people don't have a vision of themselves or their life as to what is actually meant for them. This ability to experience an extraordinary life comes as a byproduct of firstly having a desire, then having a design, and then making the decision. And so if you do not make that decision that you want an extraordinary life, then you're not going to create new standards. You're not going to think about the mind frame you need to have the courage to accumulate small wins and experience success. But I'm going to tell you, you can go research your why. You can read books on finding your purpose. All of that's important and relevant. But there's only one why that drives me. And that is, I know unless I become the best version of myself, then I don't role model for my children. I don't serve my patients and my community. And at the end of my life, I'll look back and reflect and go, I could have been more, I could have done more, I could have served more. And anything less than my own willingness to actually expand my potential so that I can serve humanity in a greater way is a disappointment. And I've got an obligation to do this. So find your why and realize that a mediocre life, you don't reflect back on that and say, gee, I'm glad I took it easy for those last couple of years. Now you look back on the things you have done that have added value to people's lives, that have brought meaning into people's experiences, and your sense of not just achievement, it's not even significance. It's your sense of gratitude for having been able to contribute and add value and bring meaning to set people's lives and situations and circumstances. People don't do this because they don't understand the far-reaching impact of making a decision to change lives. And if they did know that, they would dig deep because they would see all of the consequences of having an extraordinary life and what it meant for other people. So they don't know that, but now they know that. There is no excuse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like sometimes if you're not sure what your why is, do something of service.
Mm.
And that seems to be sometimes a nice trigger for people. And I love the way that you talked about kind of like on your deathbed, looking back at your life, you want to make sure that you don't have any regrets. You want to make sure that you were the best version of yourself. And it sounds like if you were to say like the top 3 whys that motivate people, just to give some people some practical ideas out there, if they're like, you know what, I don't really know what my why is, or if you have more than 3, what would you say some of those are? You talked about like being the best version of yourself for your kids. What other things?
Well, I think the first one, and because most people have a strong faith, is their faith. Now, I don't know anyone who has a faith who doesn't know and understand that whatever their faith is, whatever label they place on the intelligence that governs this planet and this life, call it God or call it otherwise, everyone with a faith says they know that God wants them to serve. So that's the first part. You have a calling. Whether you have acknowledged it or honored it is irrelevant. You have a calling. So that's the first why most people I know that have, is that they have a calling and they honor that calling. The second really becomes one of service. They know that because everyone is unique. They have knowledge, skills, talents, and abilities that nobody else has, which means they can do something that nobody else can do. And when they take ownership of those, that becomes their why. No one can work in this area. No one can do this. No one is doing this, and there needs to be a help. So they find that they've got a place to give. And as I said, the other one is that role modeling. I want my children to grow up to be extraordinary people. I want my children to make an impact in the world and have positive influence and serve as well. So unless I am willing to role model them or that for them, they will find other role models. And those role models may be people that are, in gangs or taking drugs, and I don't want that for them. So I invest heavily in my own life that I can role model and invest heavily in my children's life. I think the other reason that is really important is recognizing the impact that you're going to have, not only on your spouse, your family, but your colleagues and your friends. So when you decide that you are going to be more, do more, you become a positive influence, a thought leader in your area, your community, and that means you're elevating the people around you as well. So you find this motivation to do this when you know that everything's going to be better, the business is going to function better, your colleagues are going to perform better, and the world becomes better as a result of your contribution. And there's your next why, is you see the positive influence, the beneficial change, and the sense of self that comes from that is so rewarding. Once you've had that, you don't sit there and say, well, I've helped once, I don't want to help again, because although that felt great, I really enjoyed feeling useless before, or unsupportive of other people. You don't go back to a lesser version of yourself. Once you expand yourself, you don't contract back to the same state you were at before. So the why is knowing that the growth enhances and improves your life as well. It energizes you, it motivates you, it enhances your health and well-being. It gets you up early, it gives you the energy to go late, and it allows you to live this life filled with purpose and passion, energy, enthusiasm. The excitement that comes from it actually fuels you. So you're better, your family's better, your community is better, the world is better, The why, self-evident, compelling, powerful. It shows as an absolute necessity to take action.
Brilliant. So 80% of our thoughts are negative. And I'm just seeing this person that you have just created in our minds. And I'm thinking about people who are listening to this and watching it and being like, how do you get momentum when 80% of our thoughts are negative, when that bed feels cozier than getting up early, when you're surrounded by people, either in your home, in your community, on Facebook, on the news, who are telling you not to be this way? How do you step into that and shut all the rest of that out?
Yeah, beautiful. And I think there are two imperatives. I mean, I could give you a list again of dozens of things you can do, but we start with two simple things. If you are already lacking momentum in the direction you want to go, it's about those small wins. What I did easily 20 years ago, probably more, probably 25 years ago, I put 3 smooth pebbles in my pocket on the right-hand side. And then whenever I decided to do an act of service or make a positive contribution, I moved one pebble from the right to the left. So there was a physical, tangible feeling, this smooth rock, reminding me that I'd done something good. And at the end of each day, I said, I'm going to have 3 pebbles in my left pocket. And I made certain that I did. So, and by the way, for those who think it's really, it's easy for me to say this because I've, obviously an optimistic, positive person, but I can assure you, I came from a background, and I say this with vulnerability, but love to those who've experienced the same things. My father died of alcoholism. My sisters committed suicide. My parents went bankrupt. There is no challenge and adversity we can't face. But I still had to make positive decisions. And I grew up, and I have a little burn here, which you might not see on the camera, had a burns injury. So I fought my way through school. I was suspended more times than people turned up to school. And what that meant was I had to develop strategies to become better and get out of my own negative mindset and my own doubts, fears, and uncertainties. And that was a small win phenomenon. I took a stone from my right to my left every time I made a positive decision. And then at the end of the day, and this is that second strategy, find a way to do small wins, reward those. And then at the end of the day, I took a journal. In fact, my most expensive book in my library is a journal, a handmade paper recycled journal worth $120, and it's blank. Wow. And I write in it at the end of each day 7 things that I'm grateful for. And that builds that momentum. So you look at, and then it could be the reflection of things the challenges you face and the way you overcame them. The challenges that are there that you learned that you've got more work yet to do. You can still be grateful for things because somebody once said to me, I've got nothing positive at the end of the day. And I was like, really? Have you got a roof over your head? Be grateful for that. Well, did you have breakfast this morning? Yeah, well, that was the only good thing of the day. Well, be grateful for that. And then be grateful for the shop that provided you the cereal, and the person who planted the corn and harvested the corn, and the truck that brought the corn to the store that manufactured it into a packet of cornflakes. You can still get 7 positives out of any situation, but start building the positives, reflecting on the positives, acknowledging those positives, and then forming a habit of making sure you bring those into your daily activities with others.
Brilliant. And you're talking about neural sculpting and neuroplasticity, changing the way the brain is, changing the way that we think. So even for people who are really exhausted out there, have low energy and fatigue, they can still do this, right?
Yeah, they can. And the gratitude journal isn't exhausting, it's liberating, it's energizing, it's fueling. So even if you were in a state of chronic fatigue, incredible depletion, and emotional overwhelm, and it doesn't have to be a $120 book. It can be a $1 notepad. It can be a scrap paper that you find in a recycling bin, and you write that thought down and you might be, I'm grateful for the energy I know is coming my way. I'm grateful for the fact I've had a message of hope that can increase my energy. I'm grateful that I can overcome stress, strain, and overwhelm because my body's designed to function, to heal. And I'm grateful, although I haven't found the way yet, that the path is still before me. So you still find in the state of exhaustion that reframing, that rethinking. And it's a little bit, I give an analogy. It's like I live by a river. And this river, Queanbeyan River, got dammed 40 odd years ago. And so it's now brown. It's a festy river. Let's just be honest. Most people have got, it's not a crystal clear one you want to drink out of. And so if you grab a cup of water from that, you're not going to drink it because you're going to be pretty unwell afterwards. But if I then get spring water from the top of the mountain, the freshest water in the country, and if I put 10 mil into that brown water, are you going to drink it? No, it's still brown and festy. But then if I add 20 mil, will you drink it? No, brown and festy still, but just a little less brown. But if I keep adding 20, 40, 100 mil, and if I then tip the whole liter or 2 liters into that cup, it will flush away all of the toxins eventually to the point where you can drink from that glass. Because when you displace the toxic water with the fresh water, you've now got the fresh water you can drink. The same is true for the thoughts and the overwhelm and the stress. If you flush away those negative thoughts, one thought at a time, one moment of gratitude at a time, it accumulates, it flushes out the toxic thoughts, the overwhelm, and it may take weeks, it may take months, it may be drop by drop. But when you do that, the healing takes place emotionally, mentally, the energy elevates. Hope is not only ignited, the energy that comes with hope elevates your capacity to perform, to function, and it's accumulative. Small wins are accumulative.
So good. So we've talked about how increasing resilience increases energy, but is there anything else that you would want to say about that?
Look, the reason increasing resilience increases energy is not because you can cope with what happens, but because you have a greater capacity to do more with what you have. And this is something everybody, I believe, needs to know and understand and believe, is that they have more potential within them than they have even imagined is humanly possible. And you could say of somebody like Elon Musk and say, well, has he got more potential in his mind? He's already created SpaceX and Tesla. The answer is yes, he's got more creative capacity even than that. So that's great. So what about these great Olympic runners that are fitter than anything? Have they got greater capacity? Well, then if you read a book like Born to Run, which is about a tribe of the Tarahumara in the Aztec Indian part of Central America, they don't come and run in the Olympics, but they're faster than our Olympians. They have no desire as an indigenous population to compete, but they beat our world records at a jog, not even a run. So capacity is there. So this is the thing about resilience. It liberates your energy because when you do more and become more, you have the capacity for more, and it becomes a virtuous cycle, a constant building up and a growth process. And that's why resilience for me is one of the core skills to not only, as I said, coping with what's happening in the world, but becoming more to serve a world in distress and trauma by you having that capacity. And it liberates your energy, it fuels your creativity, it expands your potential, and it makes life extraordinary.
And so then what happens, or how do we deal with, or how do you recommend the best ways to deal with something like a school shooting when you're coming from a place of resilience?
The place of resilience when we have events like that in the world, and whether it's a school shooting or whether, I had dealt with somebody yesterday whose best friend's son committed suicide. It's been tough these last 2 years, and suicide rates have increased by 10% in my region alone, and the rest of the world, no doubt. So the shootings, the suicides, the loss of a loved one, resilience allows us not to distance ourselves from that experience or deny that experience. Resilience isn't, I can stick my head in the sand and ignore that. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to feel. Resilience is about being in the feeling, honoring that feeling, having compassion and sensitivity for those that are immersed in those experiences, and still choosing love, choosing peace, choosing forgiveness. And that's why it's a mind frame. That's why it's a mental training. You cannot choose peace, love, or forgiveness if you haven't decided that you want to choose peace, love, and forgiveness on a daily basis in easy and effortless experiences, and then slowly, incrementally more challenging experiences, and then inevitably experiences as traumatic as this. But the way I would do it would be, I would say, I choose peace instead of the pain. Not because I ignore the pain, but because the pain does not serve me loving those who are in the position of pain. And I choose love because love heals. And I want to heal myself. I want to heal this moment. And I choose forgiveness. And many people say, how can you forgive these atrocities? Because you do forgiveness for yourself, not for them. Forgiveness means you don't carry the burden and the pain and the anger and the hurt and then the fear, the doubt, or the uncertainty. You choose peace, you choose love, you choose forgiveness. And if you can't do that in this situation, you choose it in an easier situation, like a memory of a teacher when you were younger at school who called you out and embarrassed you in front of everybody else. And you said, well, you know what, that didn't upset my life so dramatically that I can't forgive that teacher for that, and that I can't choose peace around the memory of that, and that I accept that I'm going to be loving towards the memory of that teacher. Those small incremental forgiveness, peace, and love moments build to when a scenario and situation like this happens, you have that capacity.
So good. So where does empathy fit into that sort of moment? Does empathy ooh, that really hurts, and then I'm coming back to peace, love, acceptance, forgiveness?
Look, I read a book, and I'm sure a lot of people watching this have either read it, heard of it, or if not, this will be a revelation for them, by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I had what was perhaps one of the most profound moments of my life in developing empathy, sensitivity, and genuine compassion and care from reading that book. And I've got a moment to tell a story. Evan, have I?
Please. Yeah.
I'm going to embellish the story from that book because I think it is so life-changing that this, I think, will change the trajectory of a number of people's lives. And I'm going to tell the story differently because it was just a paragraph, but it impacted me in a different way. So I want you to imagine for a moment that you're on a bus, and it's New York, peak hour, in the middle of summer. It's hot, it's sweltering, it's cram-packed. And you've just done a 12-hour day. You had to get up early to prepare for a presentation. You presented all day. You are exhausted. You cannot think about anything else but getting home, having a shower, and you're going to go straight to bed because you are depleted. And then you're on this bus. It's packed and it's standing room only, and you hear this kid scream. It's like, oh, the last thing I need is a screaming child. And then not only is this kid screaming, the kid's bumping around, and then he's got a little play sword, and he whacks you with it. And you just look around and you're like, what? And the father's sitting over there, hand on his chin, ignoring this child. This father is there for this child, is meant to be responsible, and this kid's whacking. You just say to the kid, oh, come, don't worry, don't calm down, mate, just relax. And he's like, but I'm a ninja. And he whacks you again. Now, I'm going to interrupt the story for a moment as everyone listening to this, and you as well, Evan, and reflect on this. What's your thought that comes to mind? The average thought, not the peace, love, forgiveness thought, but imagine yourself in this tiredness and fatigue. How do you think you would react to that situation?
Frustration, anger.
Exactly. And that's what most people do. And I'd add judgment to that. That father is irresponsible. That kid needs maybe if you're in a tired way, and maybe you don't subscribe to this, I certainly don't, but that kid needs a bit of a whack to bring them into line. Your immediate thoughts go to the frustration, the anger. And so Stephen Covey is in this situation. He tells his story, and he goes over to the gentleman and says, look, I don't know if you realize this. Your kid's out of control. He's whacking people. He's been really noisy, and everyone's a bit afraid. And the man gets out of his reverie and he says, look, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. We just came from the hospital and my wife just died. And I actually don't know if I know how to deal with it. And I don't think my son really understands what's going on. And I slipped. I'm sorry. Son, come here. And he puts him on his seat. And in that moment, Stephen said, I had a paradigm shift. I knew I could no longer judge any other person for the choices or actions they have made because I do not know what is taking place in the background of their life. Right. And that means when somebody pulls a trigger on a gun and takes another life, do we know what led to that moment? Do we understand the broken brain that they may have and the compassion that can come from that, the empathy of understanding? And when this family loses that member, can we sit in their seat long enough to say, we can't possibly understand the pain that they will endure, but can we love them with all our heart nonetheless? Because that is what they deserve. And in any moment, in any situation, when you feel yourself called to judge, when you feel yourself responding with anger, when somebody does something that you claim is stupid or foolish or unnecessary or selfish, instead of responding in anger, in judgment, and feeling hurt, the empathy of, why would they have done this? And instead of an attack, see it as a call for help and respond with love and compassion.
Wow. Amazing. You are amazing, my friend. You are articulate. Yes, you are brilliant. And I'm so excited to share this podcast with the world because I hope that it's going to change a lot of people's lives. So tell us how people can learn more about you. Where can they go find you in social media, website, whatever?
Yeah, look, firstly, I just want to acknowledge you, Evan. You make this possible, and the message that you have has served so many lives. So I want to appreciate and acknowledge you. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share, because I do believe when we come together in community, we add value and everybody grows, and you make that possible. So thank you, my friend. I appreciate you. For me, I have my best-selling book is on Amazon, which is called Rise, 60 Days to Unshakable Physical, Emotional, Mental Resilience. My practice, Provolution Health, provolutionhealth.com.au. You can reach out there. I'm happy to offer any questions, provide any support that's necessary. We also hosted the Resilience Initiative, the-resilience-initiative.com, which had, including you, Dr. Evan, a world-class panel of speakers sharing insights in how you can develop the resilience to be able to have that extraordinary life as well. So those resources are available, and I love to serve and add value in any way that I can.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me here today. I so appreciate your time.
My honor, my pleasure. Thanks, everyone. So let's all go rise and make the world a better place.
I hope you learned something on today's podcast. If you did, please share it with your friends and family and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. It's really helpful for getting this information out to more fatigued people who desperately need it. Sharing all the experts I know and love and the powerful tips I have on fatigue is one of my absolute favorite things to do. If you'd like more information, please sign up for my newsletter, where I share all important facts and information about fatigue, from the foods and supplements to the programs and products that I use personally and recommend to others so that they can live their best lives. Just go to fixyourfatigue.com/newsletter to sign up, and I will send you this great information. Thanks for being part of my community. Just a reminder, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or other qualified medical professional. It is provided with the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for help with your fatigue, you can visit my website and work with us at fixyourfatigue.com. And remember, it's important that you have someone in your corner who is a credentialed healthcare professional to help you make changes. This is very important, especially when it comes to your health. Thanks for listening.